Help, I fixed my wrist pain, but now my elbow hurts. This is a message that I had from one of our members recently, and it is something that I know so many of you are struggling with. It's this injury cycle, right? It's this, I just fixed one injury, but now I've got another one. Help me, please. I'm going to talk about what's going on here and what you can do to fix it. And before I get into that, the boring stuff, of course, this year, actually right now, for 2 more days, you can join our UMS online coaching at a 38% discount. So if that's something that you want to do, we made it available for the first 20 people that get it. We've sold 14 of them, so we've got 6 left, and the offer is available for 2 more days. Go to unitygym.com/UMS-discount, and you can get incredible online coaching, work with me and my brother directly, and get all your programs written for you, join an incredible community, do live Zoom calls with me, and never have to worry about what you're doing with your program again. Fix all your injuries, all that good stuff. All right, let's get into today's session, because today I'm talking about something that I'm actually going to be going through. I'm going to be doing a series over the next couple of days or over this week where I'm basically going through different parts of the body that people are struggling with, where it seems that they fix one injury and then they get another. So what inspired this live stream today is that one of our members has just fixed wrist pain, and now the wrist pain's completely gone, and now he's got elbow pain up here. And so I'm going to talk to you about what's going on when this happens, because the body is a system. It's not a series of isolated things. Like when you look at what's going on beneath the skin, everything's connected. And what often happens when you're feeling pain is that you're actually feeling just the most prominent pain from a different injury. And so I'll give you an example. If you've had a shoulder injury, that is going to affect your elbow and your wrist. So you look at all of the joints that the shoulder can affect, because anything that you grab with your hand, you're using, all of the fingers, you're using the wrist, you're using the elbow, and you're using the shoulder, you're using your spine, you're even, using your hips and your legs when you pick things up. But if we keep it isolated to the upper limb. And so what happens is you can have a shoulder injury. You don't treat it, you don't go through rehab, you don't fix it. You just kind of wait until the pain sort of subsides. And what happens when you do that is that the injury doesn't fix, the injury doesn't heal. And the body basically works out a way that it can still function whilst working around that injury. And it's almost guaranteed to be a dysfunctional way to operate. So what do I mean? It means that, you've got these systems within your shoulder where you've got these scapular stabilizers that are meant to control the scapula in a certain way. You've got the rotator cuff that's meant to, control the way that the humerus moves in the glenohumeral joint. And then you've got all your prime movers. And if you move the way that you're meant to move by using the muscles the way they're meant to, you've got an injury there. That causes pain. So the body works out, how can I move without using these muscles so much and without causing pain? And it does a really good job of that. But then what happens is, because you're moving in this dysfunctional way, you start putting more strain on joints that aren't meant to have so much strain. So a really common cause of golfer's elbow, which is what people feel in here, which is a really common injury, a common cause of that is shoulder dysfunction. Because when the shoulders aren't working properly, you're putting more strain on the wrist flexors when you're doing pulling movements. And so then over time, all of a sudden now you start feeling pain in your wrist or pain in your elbows, when the real issue that's going on is something within your shoulder. So, in the example that I've given here, you could work on fixing your golfer's elbow and you fix it, and then all of a sudden you notice that you've got shoulder pain. But let's be specific to what the topic of this video is. So, you've got wrist pain, you're dealing with it, it's causing you problems, you do all your rehab, you fix the wrist pain, and all of a sudden you notice that there's something going on in your elbow. It's quite possible that was the big issue, that the big issue is something that was going on in your elbow, and that was causing you to put more stress on the wrist joint than what it's designed for. And when you look at the arm, the joints basically get smaller the further away you go from your center mass. The shoulder joint is a big joint, a lot of muscle mass. The elbow joint is a smaller joint with less muscle mass, and the wrist joint is an even smaller joint with less muscle mass, and then your fingers are even smaller, of course. So when you start to experience pain in those extremities, it's not always that that's what the problem is. And so what do you do about it? So you've just, you've rehabilitated your wrist, you're not feeling wrist pain anymore, but then all of a sudden you've got elbow pain, and you're going, what the hell is going on with my body? Why is this happening? It's most likely, it's almost guaranteed that you haven't been strength training in a way that creates structural balance in the body. So when you do structural balance training for the body, which is basically when you're thinking about training all of your joints, you're training one-to-one pushing and pulling, you're thinking of training, synergy between antagonistic or opposing muscle systems, then these things tend to work themselves out. And if you do get pain and get injuries, they tend to resolve themselves much, much more quickly. But if you haven't been doing that, so if you're somebody that's just been going to the gym and kind of just winging it, sort of doing whatever your mate told you to do, or doing whatever you feel like doing today, then you've almost guaranteed not been training for structural balance. And so over the years, you've developed imbalances within your body. And then when these aches and pains start coming out, they just seem to be one after the other after the other. And it's, it's also tied in with aging. This is something that is really commonly felt with people that are over the age of 35. Our bodies are very resilient under the age of 35. We are designed in a way that we, kind of are constantly growing and developing up until the age of 35, and then everything starts to sort of taper off as we get older. And, so these sort of systems start breaking down. You start experiencing this sort of catastrophic breakdown of the organism of the body where, you have one injury and you think, oh my God, I've got to fix this injury. And then another injury comes up. And a big part of the problem is that people are isolating issues. So you're looking at the body as a series of isolated areas where you think, I've got this injury, I'm going to fix this injury and then I'll be okay. And then you fix that injury and you start training the way that you want to train again, and another injury comes up. And this is why when we write programs for people in the UMS, in the Unified Movement System, we always write structural balance training programs. So even when people come to us for a shoulder injury, we still write a structural balance program for the whole body. Even though the focus of the program is to deal with this shoulder injury, we still do core training. We still train the hips, the knees, the legs, and we train for structural balance. I get people sometimes that come in for a shoulder. A shoulder injury is the most common injury that we get because we've just become known, online for slap tear experts and shoulder experts. Even though I've had so many other injuries, that's just the content that seems to have resonated with people, and shoulder injuries are so common. And people will look at their program and they'll say, why have I got leg training? I'm here just for a shoulder injury. And that right there is the reason why this injury cycle just keeps occurring. It's this idea that you're only going to deal with the issue that presents to you. But, whilst you're making your shoulder stronger and overcoming this injury in your shoulder, in this example, if you're not training your legs, then your legs are becoming weaker and more prone to injury whilst you're strengthening your shoulder. And it just creates this cycle, you fix the shoulder and then another injury comes out. And so, in the case of, got a wrist injury, fixed the pain, now I've got an elbow injury. This is, it's just the body going through its series of what is worse. What am I dealing with? What's the worst thing that we're dealing with now? And that's the pain that you're going to experience. And this is a really interesting thing about pain. I'll tell you a little fact about pain. Our body will present to us the pain that is most prominent. That's what we'll experience. There was a guy, I think he was a psychologist, who did a test on pain where he had people that would come in that would, present with pain wherever. And what he would do, wrap your head around this, he would get a cigarette and burn their arm with the cigarette and then ask them if they still felt the pain. And the majority of people, this is obviously not people with like a 10 out of 10 pain, like a bit of a dull ache in the back or whatever, but they couldn't feel the pain that they came in for after they got burned on the arm with a cigarette, because the burn from the cigarette was a stronger pain response than whatever the pain that they were coming in for. And so it's a really interesting concept, because the pain that you're feeling is most likely just the worst thing that you're feeling right now. And once that gets resolved, your nervous system will start to present other pain in your body that is from issues that were there already, but they just weren't worse than the pain that you were dealing with for the injury that you thought you had to fix. And so, what can you do about it? The process is really to continue to strength and flexibility train for strength and flexibility, train for structural balance, and try to understand the idea that you're always training for your weak link. So if you imagine that there's a chain and the chain is holding up weight, whatever the weakest link is what's going to go first. So that chain can only hold an amount of, like even if this chain is rated to hold 5,000 kilograms, but that one weak link will break if more than 1,000 kilograms goes on the chain. The whole chain can only hold 1,000 kilograms or less than 1,000 kilograms. And so when you're in the gym and when you're lifting weights, a problem that a lot of people deal with, is that they can't understand why, I used to be able to bench, 200 pounds, but, every time I try and bench, my wrist is hurting. Well, if you've got a wrist injury, you have to bench to an amount of weight that the wrist can handle. And a false mindset around this is to think, well, I'm not getting any better if I'm not benching 200 pounds. And that's incorrect, because the thing that you need to fix more than anything is the injuries that are preventing you from training. Like you might have a big goal that you want to get up to a 250 pound bench, or like if that's a strength related goal, or you might have a goal that you want to build muscle mass on your chest. And so that's why you want to bench heavy. But the thing that's stopping you more than anything else from being able to achieve that goal of a 250 pound bench or building more muscle mass on your chest, right now, it's not that you can't bench enough. That's not what's stopping you. It's that you can't lift enough weight. What's stopping you is that you have a wrist injury that's preventing you from being able to bench. So it makes sense that you would train in a way that would fix that wrist injury, allow you to keep working out and, not going backwards at least too far. And then when that wrist injury is dealt with, you can load up to 200 pounds and start, working on building that muscle or working on, hitting that 250 pound bench. So it's it's this idea, like in a nutshell, without, because everybody needs different programming. People will often ask me on, comments on social media, what's the exercise that I should do to overcome this or to fix this or to achieve this goal? And it's almost never one exercise that needs to be done. It's programming that needs to be done. There's a series of programming, like to get you from a state of injured to a state of non-injured. It's not one exercise that you add to your workout. It's a program that deals with these things systematically in the way that I've described. So, even though you're dealing with a wrist injury, I would prescribe things like wrist flexion with dumbbells, wrist extension with dumbbells. I'd also do wrist pronation and supination with a broomstick. But I'd also be working on elbow strength with bicep curls and tricep extensions. And I'd also be working on shoulder function with pushing and pulling, and with scapular stabilization work, and with rotator cuff work as well, because we'd be looking at the whole system, the whole kinetic chain of the wrist, the elbow, and the shoulder. And then, of course, you're using progressive overload and periodization, which means that you in a nutshell, like if you really want to take something from this that I hope you guys can use, you have a program for yourself that you're going to do several days a week. So you would never train the same, well, shouldn't say never say never. You would very rarely train the exact same exercises more than 2 or 3 days a week, unless you're doing really reduced intensity, like activation work, where you're not going anywhere near failure. Sometimes in rehab programs, I have people doing the same exercises 5 or 6 days a week, but it's very, very low intensity. So it's basically just to reawaken the neuromuscular connection, the connection between the brain, the nervous system, and the muscles, so that when you try to do the movement, you're doing it correctly. But you have your program, you're doing the same movements, the same workout, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and you'll do that for, on average, 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks if you need a little bit more time to get your head around the movements and to adapt to the workout. And then you change certain variables in your program to create a new program. And the changes that you make are small changes. You don't do huge changes from one program to the next. And the idea would be that the program that you're doing and the workouts that you're doing, that when you do the workout, that the next day, whatever the injury that you're feeling doesn't feel worse. So you have your baseline level of pain. So in the case of a wrist injury, you've got this baseline level of pain where you know that if you push your hand down or if you grab something or whatever it is, that it hurts this much. It hurts a 3 or 4 out of 10. If you do one of these workouts and then you feel that your baseline level of pain has increased the next day, then you know you've gone too hard. And the next time you do that workout, you need to either reduce the range of motion, so basically using a reduced range of motion. So for example, with a bicep curl, instead of, doing full range like this, maybe you're only doing partial range like that. And then that would be something that you would increase from workout to workout with progressive overload. Or you reduce the amount of weight that you're lifting, so the intensity. So instead of doing, wrist flexion with 5 kilogram dumbbells, you'll do them with 3 kilogram dumbbells. Or you'll reduce the amount of volume that you do. So you can reduce the amount of volume by either reducing the amount of reps that you do per set, or reducing the amount of sets that you do per workout, or both, or reducing the amount of workouts you do in a week and increasing the recovery time between workouts. And you can do any combination of those things to reduce the load on the joint so that your baseline level of pain isn't increasing. And that's the gist of what you should be doing if you want to be able to manage pain like this so that you can continue to work out. Because it's almost never the right strategy to rest when you have pain or when you have injuries. That's almost never the right strategy in very, very rare cases. And I get all of this from very, very good sports physical therapists. I worked with sports physical therapists in Unity Gym for almost a decade, and people who are elite sports physical therapists. They were the physical therapists for elite athletes in football clubs in Australia. So everything that I'm passing on to you guys comes from hundreds, maybe thousands of hours of conversation with these guys, understanding about injury and pain management and the injury cycle. And I remember asking, as a blanket sort of statement, what are the injuries that you would avoid exercise for? And the only real ones were a fractured bone, like if you've broken a bone and it's displaced and they reset it, and they put it in a cast, you do need to immobilize that. It needs to stay, which is why they put you in a cast. They put you in a cast so that the joint can't move and so the bone can reset. And so you do need to immobilize that if you have a fracture, or if you've had surgery and you have an open wound where you have stitches that are repairing. So if you've had a surgery for a hernia, that's something that you would need to rest and recover from, and you'd need to completely avoid any exercise that would put pressure on your abdomen. But beyond that, the advice that I got from very good physical therapists is pretty much any other injury and almost every sports injury, motion is lotion, and exercise is the solution for it. But if you do it the wrong way, you do make things worse. So you do need to know, or like if you don't know, what somebody like I knows, or what somebody like I know, or like what a really good sports physical therapist knows, then you want to be working with somebody that can guide you through this process. So, again, the shameful plug, if that's you, if you want to fix your injuries, then you can come and join our UMS online coaching. You can work with me directly. And right now we're offering it at a huge discount, at a 38% discount for the New Year's special. So you can get it if you go to unitygym.com/UMS-discount. And I've got a couple of minutes left before I end this stream. So anybody that is on live, if you've got a question, then let me know. Bayfee 2003 is saying, I'm from Australia. I am. Could you tell from my accent, mate? Yes, I'm from Australia. Where are you from? Where are you watching from? But that's why I do online coaching. Amber on YouTube is saying, hi tribe, good to see you, coach. Good to see you too, Amber. And you know what? Yanni and I have got something that we're announcing to you guys soon. We are doing some live Zoom calls for you guys in our UMS online coaching community. We're going to start doing regular live Zoom calls this year again. We haven't done them for a little while. The navigating the vicissitudes of life as being parents, new parents with young children. It was very hard for us to do all of that. But we're resuming it now. So there you go. If you guys have any questions, I'm gonna be ending this live stream in a minute. But if you've got any questions related to injuries that you have, put them up and I will answer them for you. Baif is saying, I'm from Istanbul, Turkey. Awesome. So good to be chatting to people from all over the world. It's 5:53 a.m. over here, very early in the morning. Brezel on YouTube is saying, about a year ago, how important is a diagnosis, or would you recommend starting one of your programs, since I don't think I really need a costly MRI? Yeah, if you don't need a costly MRI, you don't need to get it, absolutely. And the thing is, like I say this to everybody, people wait for the circumstances to be perfect before they start doing the thing that's really going to make them better. And if you start training with me, then we're going to write a program that's specific to your goals and to your needs, and we see how you progress with it. And 9 times out of 10, people's symptoms improve very, very quickly when they start doing a structural balance program that's tailored to the injuries and the pain that they have. And if that doesn't happen, in the very rare cases that doesn't happen, I have direct access to some incredible physical therapists so the first point of call is that I always talk to them and I say, hey, I'm working with this person and they're dealing with this, and we're facing this obstacle. What should we do? And so I get really good advice on how to deal with anything that I'm not 100% sure of. And then in worst case scenario, you can go to a physical therapist, see them personally, and get a good diagnosis from them without having an MRI. So yeah, absolutely. Don't wait until conditions are perfect. Get started. 9 times out of 10, just doing a good structural balance training program will resolve your pain. Morales Media is saying, do false grips ever get easier, or do you recommend a progression towards a false grip hangs? False grips do get easier when you practice them more. But you do need to practice them. So in the Muscle Up Masterclass that we teach people in the UMS, you do a lot of false grip holds, a lot of hanging. So if you start with false grips like this is easier when your elbows are flexed and when you're turned inward into a supinated grip. So when you do your false grips like that, they are a lot easier. And then when you can do that for at least 3 sets of 20 seconds, then you can go to the full lockout false grip, which is where you let your arms go right up into shoulder flexion above your head, and you let your hands turn outwards so they pronate. And that's the false grip that you really need to develop for a muscle up. And once you can do that for 3 sets of 25 seconds, at least your false grip will be strong enough for muscle ups. So you start there, and then eventually you progress to there. And yes, they are very, very hard. Make sure that you use a lot of chalk. So when you do a false grip, you chalk all over your palm, and then you also chalk through there as well. And then if you start getting blisters here, if the skin starts blistering, you have to use wrapping tape around your wrist, but you don't start the workout with wrapping tape. The idea is that you want to do as much as you can, and you want to catch your hand before the skin tears, and then, so maybe after the first set or second set or whatever it is, and then you put wrapping tape on before the skin tears, because once the skin's torn here, you'll have to use wrapping tape until the skin repairs. So yeah, I hope that answers your question about false grips. All right, team, that's it for me. I've got to go and teach a class now, so thanks so much for tuning in. Tomorrow, unless I get any very specific questions, tomorrow I'm going to cover this same topic, but for back pain, for people that are suffering with back pain. I've got one more question here. Hi, Rad, from Amanda in St. Louis, USA. Really appreciate all you and Yanni do. I have been following you guys for years and always find great value in everything you guys put out. Thank you so much. I really, really, really appreciate that. And I'm actually changing the way that I do my content this year, because it's so much work to put out all this content, and I'm working out ways that I can make it manageable for myself. And one of the ways is that I do these live streams every morning now, because these are easy. I don't have to edit them. Another way is I'm actually resuming filming my daily workouts like I was doing at the start of this year. If you go back, if you go back to January to March last year, I did 90 days where I filmed every workout I did, 2 workouts a day, and I edited them into long form videos, but it was too much work for me to maintain. So now what I'm going to be doing is doing my daily workouts, but just doing them in shorts. And so on Instagram, they'll be my stories, and on all the other platforms, I'll edit them into a 3-minute-ish short. And then I'll make shorts out of the topics that I do in the live streams as well. So for those of you that don't catch the live stream, if you just want to recap. So yeah, keep your eyes on our socials. And hey, if you've gotten this far and you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It really, really helps me to know that what I'm doing is valuable, and it also helps us to get our content out there. It helps the algorithm. It tickles the algorithm and says, hey, this is good. You should share it with more people. So that's one thing that you can do for me if you like the content that I put out. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I really appreciate you giving me your attention and your time, and I'll see you back here tomorrow at the same time. Have a wonderful day, everybody.